Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about what happened at last night's Oscars, which, by the way, most people didn't watch, but now for some reason are watching now because Will Smith assaulted Chris Rock on live television. I'm going to talk about it, why I think it happened, and why the irony is all over the place with these liberals and leftists in Hollywood, how their world is coming apart right before our very eyes. We'll talk about that right now. My name is Kyle and welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about what we're seeing right here behind me right now with Will Smith getting up on stage and smacking Chris Rock right before he wins the Oscar for Best Actor. And so I'm going to talk to you about that as well, but mostly about this what happened right here. I'm going to walk you through it from different angles, from the Chris Rock perspective, from the Oscars perspective, from Will Smith's perspective, from Jada Pinkett's perspective, from the overall narrative of Hollywood, that perspective as well, and then talk to you lastly about his apology speech at the end and why I think it was pretty disingenuous. And also just shows you why Hollywood is just a cesspool that I don't want anything really to do with much anymore. So let's break this thing down here really quickly here. Here we have Chris Rock. He's on stage here. He's just about to tell the joke, which I'm going to keep muted because of copyright issues, but I'll walk you through it. It's not that much to see. There's plenty of videos out there right now that you're going to see the whole thing uncut. Not to mention there's a lot of profanity in here as well, which is what I want to talk about a little bit because it goes into the mental state of Will Smith. And so, again, this channel was built on pop culture and politics filtered right. This is a huge story from the Oscars. You remember Ricky Gervais back in the day, a few years ago, basically roasted Hollywood on their hypocrisy and how they try to lecture to middle America and the average citizen in this country about how they live a certain way and yet they live oppositely in their own lives. It's ridiculous. And so here we are now, a few years later, where we have the Oscars, which, by the way, nobody watches. The ratings are horrible. So I wouldn't put it past this whole thing being a publicity stunt to begin with, because nobody's watching the Oscars. It turned into a serious woke fest where if you're black, that's the only way you can win an award because, all this racial so-called injustice prevents black people from getting roles. And so now we have to have, we have to give out quotas, Oscars for people who are black, which to me does nothing more than water down the merits of the award. But I'm totally digressing here, okay? So, and in Chris Rock's case, here you have a guy who had his first major stand-up role on HBO, where he was actually talking about accountability, particularly with black people, which, by the way, had that stand-up routine come out today, it would no longer be accepted. He would be canceled totally because having personal responsibility is no longer something that we can talk about. And so here we have him now talking jokes to Denzel Washington and then later to Jada Pinkett. Right now, he's actually pointing at her, and here she's right there, right above my head right here. I'm going to remove myself so you can see the whole thing. And here's Will Smith. He's smiling, having a great time. I might win an Oscar tonight. This is great. And in case you don't know, these two have let's just put it this way. The past few years has been pretty contentious, very public about extramarital affairs, interviews where they're together, where she basically makes him look like a total wimp, and people's perception of Will Smith is that he is being a wimp, or being victimized, and he's not being a man. And I'm sure that's what he's getting from people outside the circle. But I'm not here to talk about that or even validate that, but that's the perception. In my opinion, is I feel that Will Smith, what he did was nothing more than him trying to counterbalance that, defend his wife, and come across publicly that he is not this weak guy that's just taking it, that he wants to save his marriage and have a good marriage, which is commendable. That's what he is projecting. And so kudos to him on that at least. Here we go. I'm going to go for her a little bit. And here, she just heard the joke now. And what the joke was Chris Rock said this. He said, look, I'm looking forward to G.I. Jane Part 2, which is a film starring Demi Moore about her joining the Marine Corps, or trying to join the Marine Corps. She has a bald head, looks similar to Jada in some ways because she's bald. And he's basically comparing her to Demi Moore in that movie, G.I. Jane. The issue is that Jada Pinkett came out recently talking about her hair loss problem. So she has issue with hair loss. And so that is a sensitive topic, obviously. And her reaction to that, I think, played a major role in Will Smith getting up there. I don't think it was the only reason. The bigger reason was because of what's going on with him mentally, what's going on with him from a perception standpoint, from a PR standpoint, what people think about him or calling him. I'm sure he's hearing all of that, and so he just lost it. Okay, let's go forward. So Chris Rock is laughing it off, saying that was a nice joke, not a big deal. And at this point in time, he sees Will Smith get up and coming towards him. We'll go forward here a little bit. He's coming up, and here he is walking, and now he's face to face. And Chris Rock is smiling, saying, okay, what's going on? And here we have it. Here's the smack right there. And we know it was a smack because Chris Rock said that. So now I'll just play the whole thing out here. So what we hear now is, if you watch the actual audio, is Will Smith in his chair telling Chris Rock to keep his wife's name out of his effing mouth. Says it twice, very loud, and he's not very happy, okay? You know what I'm saying? And so that's the deal there. I'll leave it there. I will cut the rest of it there. You can see the rest of it for yourself somewhere else. And so the whole thing with that is this, is that here's Hollywood, who always wants to put their value system into middle America, into the average person, telling us how we should live, even though they don't live that way. And moreover, the lifestyle they want us to live is utterly destructive, okay? It's dysfunctional. And so we're seeing this play out firsthand right here on the stage on live television. We see a serious problem with the relationship between Jada Pinkett and Will Smith. There's obvious problems going on there. Will Smith says he loves her. I believe he loves her, but they're having problems, but it's being put out in the public sphere. And with social media and with the whole snowflake syndrome, where people not being able to cope with these kinds of stress out in the mainstream public, makes it very difficult for people to act accordingly with decorum. You see now with LeBron James, you see people in the NBA acting out, saying, I can't believe that they're talking bad about me. You know, I can't believe they're doing this. The mental illness that's going on around this country in terms of the lack or the ability to cope with issues is just insane. Pardon the pun. And that's the point I'm trying to get across here. That it's okay to have traditional values in a home. If a woman wants to stay home and take care of the kids and take care of the home, make that a good place for the husband and the family, that's fine. That's good. If the man wants to go out and work and provide for his family, and that's good as well. It's also important for the kids to also be part of that as well, and to attend church and to do all these things that the left wants to frown upon, that's not something that we need to be doing. But what I say is, show me an example in your world where it's working out for you. How is it working out in your Hollywood world here? How is your lives you want us to live by? How is that working out for you guys? And we're seeing, again, like I said, right here on live television, this whole thing play out, everyone to see, on the major stage of the Academy Awards show. Now, later on, Will Smith did win the award for Best Actor for the film. It's the Williams sister tennis movie. I think it's called King Richard. I think it's called that. About Richard Williams and his desire to have his daughters become great champions, which they were. This is Venus and Serena. Me being a really big tennis fan, watched them come up, supported Venus most of the years, and then tried to support Serena, but I just couldn't because I just couldn't get behind her. But I do respect everything they've done. He gives an apology, but from what I saw, he didn't give an apology to Chris Rock. He gave it to the Academy and to his fellow nominees. And so there's that. So there's some animosity there, probably. But here's the thing that I found interesting is that, Hollywood, they tried to play it in the whole speech that he gave. He was crying the whole time and people were weeping and crying, whatever. And of course, Hollywood's going to gloss all that over. The whole thing that he assaulted the man on live television, right? They're going to gloss that over and excuse away. Oh, how brave isn't he? Isn't he so brave? But the thing is, people need to understand that we have to be able to control our emotions. We have to be able to cope with situations, especially when they're something of that nature, when you're in that kind of limelight. He has other problems too that I've read about, but I'm not going to get into. You can look into that. This is not a gossip channel at all, but it is important because pop culture does carry itself into our lives and into the lives of society. And how that works is how politicians look at things, and it does affect us ultimately in the end. But the key takeaway here again is that we don't have to live our lives the way Hollywood tells us to live our lives, because if we do, we can end up like them and countless other stories that are out there that go under the radar that they don't want to talk about. But this one, they have to talk about because it was in everyone's face. And I'm sure the Academy of Sciences is actually probably happy it did, because otherwise no one would have watched the Oscars at all. What do you think about this? What do you think about this whole thing with Jada Pinkett and Will Smith and Chris Rock and the Academy and no one watching the Oscars until today? I particularly don't really care about it, but there's so much story in here that deals with this whole pop culture thing and how Hollywood likes to constantly reject their virtues and their values, their paganist values, I might say, onto our lives, and how I resent that personally. But what do you think about that? Let me know in the comments below. I'd be curious to know what you think. And if you like what we do with this channel, we take pop culture and politics and filter to you in a conservative manner. Please check out some more content that we have for you right here.